The next step is a one-to-one session, and it's got some special features. It carries on the work that was started in the holistic assessment, but it addresses whatever is important to the person at that point on that particular day. And so we don't draw up a list of problems like life is not worth living. I can't get it. I can't focus because of the voices. I keep having to wash my hands 100 times a day. But you don't draw up a list of problems to work on. What you do is, the next time you see the person, you say, well, we've got however long, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever you've got. What's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? Based on the assumption that something that might have been a problem yesterday or the day before might either have disappeared or might have been overtaken by some other problem, because nothing lasts, right? So you ask them what they want to focus on, and you then focus on trying to help the person become aware of how change is occurring, if only in a very small way. It's to focus not on what's wrong, but on how whatever might be wrong might be shifting in some way. So, what is the problem? We'd like to ask you to think of a problem that has been in your life, say, in the past week, right? Don't pick my mother never loved me, because we'll be here all day. Pick something, some problem that you had with maybe a member of your family or one of your colleagues, or maybe yourself, some frustration, irritation, annoyance, upset of some kind, right? Right. What would you call that problem, right? So give it a name, right? Might have one word, might have several words, right? And then ask yourself, well, how would you want it to be, right? This is the obvious question. You know how it has been, like 5 minutes ago or last week or whenever it blew up, and this has become one of your problems. How would you want it to be if you could just go like that, right? How would you want to transform this situation? Either your relationship with your family, friends, or some abstract thing, or some aspect of yourself. What would you want it to be like? This is the obvious question. So we would always begin and always try and help the person identify. So how would you want this thing that you're thinking of? We'll call it X. How would you want it to be? Now, the really important question is, you've got this thing on your mind just now. You know what it is, you know what it's called, you've got an idea how you'd like it to be. How have you dealt with it? How have you lived with it so far? What sort of things have you done so far just to keep going, right? Everybody think about, what have you done just to keep going with this, whatever it is? What do you do? How do you do it? Right? We don't know what this is. I mean, we recognize the name that you've given it, but we don't know if we're talking about the same thing. What do you do? How do you do it? Maybe you can't really think of anything, but we might well ask you, well, what sort of things have you heard other people talking about doing just to kind of get by with something similar to what you're talking about? That's what we ask you to think about, right? How do you live with this thing? What sort of things do you do just to stay afloat? And we invite you to tell us what these things are in as much detail as you can, and you'll have to explain to this fool here how you live with this problem X, right? And then we say, so you've done this, you've done that, you've thought about doing the other, blah, blah, blah. You've heard people talking about, blah, blah, right? So, what do you think you might do next? That would be different from what you've done so far, right? And what kind of help do you think you might need to do this? Could you do this on your own? Or do you think you might need some kind of help? I mean, how could I help you? Or how could someone else in the team help you? Or maybe there's someone else that you're thinking of. Friend, family, whatever. Right? Now, it's not just a case, well, you know, Josephine could help me. What would Josephine do that you might find helpful? Keep focusing on the particular and the specific. Let me see, well, we're getting near the end of this 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. What have we talked about? And you say, well, we talked about this, we talked about this. Okay. Do you want to make a note of what we've talked about? Or do you want me to make a note of that? So it's a kind of documentary record. Yeah. And then, how did you feel about this? I mean, maybe many of you will maybe already do this, but now, if you book a train, or we booked a train last week to go somewhere, and as soon as we booked the tickets, we got an email saying, "How did you find the service?" You know, this is customer service. You know, you spent 20 minutes or 30 minutes with someone. They've told you what you've talked about. You've made a note of all the things you've talked about. You've asked them you want to ask them how they felt about this, and they will tell you what they liked, what they didn't like, what they found difficult, what they found, you know, whatever. Right? It's important to ask them that. That's what our template looks like. It's a sheet of paper with 2 columns. And we have a column for the person and a column for the team. And we start at the top with the aim, you know, the person's problem. We never write the problem in there. We always write how they would want it to be. My aim would be to get on better with my twin brother, right? My aim would be to get the voices out of my life as well as out of my head, right? What would your aim be? So you write that in there, and then after they tell the story, they tell you about the things that they do, you know, to get by, that they notice are different, what kind of things they do, what they can do with this information, the kind of thing they will do next. How will then, over here, how could the team help? How could I help, or other members of the team help? What general support could be given from friends, family, and also maybe the team in general who are not doing these specific one-to-ones? And then, what have we discussed? You write a summary of what we've been talking about. And then lastly, how did you find the session? It's kind of simple. And again, you don't have to use this template. We just developed that template with the kind of questions that we've talked about here. But there has to be some kind of record, because at the end of it, we say, well, Jerome, very good, we need to move on now. You've got things to do, I've got things to do. I'm going to go down and get a copy of this, bring it back, give you a copy so you know exactly what we've talked about, so you can share it with your family, keep it to yourself, blah, 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 right? I will put it in your notes so the team will know what we've talked about here. Right? It's exactly the same.